So it's time for salt.
Yes.
And,
you're going to take the reins on the salt segment today because it's one of your favorite topics. And I'm obviously going to chime in, but I can't wait to hear your commentary on it. So go forward.
So, look, I've actually really tried to not talk about Elizabeth Warren for months.
Have you?
Honestly, actually, relative to what I could do, I'm doing like 10%. No, because honestly, I don't think that the point about Elizabeth Warren was that she was this hugely destructive narcissistic force and like the most important primary in our lifetimes, arguably. And so that was unhelpful, and that's a problem, and that deserves critique. Her campaign, and her enablers for sure. But it really isn't about like I actually have to like hold the same. Like I don't think Elizabeth Warren is going to become like a constructive force in politics. And I think her reputation is sort of like crazily overblown. But like, look, if she put in the work for the next, 3 years, I'm not going to support her running for president or anything. But like, I will be the first to say like that is an actual good piece of legislation that, whatever. Okay. And I know her defenders are immediately going to be like, but you haven't, she said, blah, 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 blah. I'm not talking about things said or Medium posts. I'm talking like points on the board. Anyways, that being said, Elizabeth Warren has been very interesting with endorsements. So she definitely joined Bernie in endorsing Jamal Bowman. She was on the right side of that race. And it's been fascinating, though, to see other endorsements. And I just have to say, her coming forward, and I think we have the tweet, endorsing John Hickenlooper is like, in the way that like I knew for like anybody who thought she'd ever endorse Bernie was just, I can't even understand how you could be that delusional. That was never going to happen. But I really thought there was definitely a chance, particularly as she's trying to like pitch this VP thing as kind of like, oh, you get the progressives with me, that she would take some give me's. Like there's a decent candidate, Andrew Romanoff. He's pretty progressive. He's pretty environmentally oriented. Cool. John Hickenlooper drank fracking water, was in the race as this like bizarre, like almost like anti-charisma candidate, basically just to like mumble in the microphone that people shouldn't get health care. I mean, that's really what he's not like. I have a national platform to discourage healthcare, and I'm really into fracking. And he has the charisma of like, not even a dead goldfish, like discovering a dead goldfish. And so for some reason, though, I mean, I don't know, maybe they hit it off on the campaign trail. Elizabeth Warren came out with, here's the thing, John Hickenlooper. Do we have that tweet, Kel? John Hickenlooper is taking on the NRA, invest in wind and solar and renewable energy to confront the climate crisis. Now, again, Andrew Romanoff is actually known for putting some very significant environmental pieces of legislation on the table in Colorado, and not for being a craven fracking advocate and massive right-wing corporatist like John Hickenlooper. And again, this actually substantively, this really shows again that Elizabeth Warren, at the very least, let's be diplomatic, is not ride or die for single-payer healthcare. Let's say that. I remember some people were very, all right, I will do some score settling. Some people were very triggered when you and I pointed out like what was in front of our faces, that right, this person is not exactly committed to single payer. And it was so annoying because even strategically, if she just came out and said, I have like the best, most progressive and most generous non-single payer proposal available, cool, we would disagree with it because it needs to be single payer, but okay, fair enough. But there was this whole like, how can you say that, blah, blah, blah. Well, she's showing you again where her priorities are. Now, it wasn't just Elizabeth Warren. There's been another figure that I have to say, I think a lot of us just were insanely over accepting of and over supportive of. And now like she has become a bit of a joke because she's been so thirsty to be Biden's VP. Stacey Abrams endorsed John Hickenlooper too. Now, it's interesting because there's actually an interesting parallel here. And in some ways, I have to say, like, Stacey Abrams is a much more dynamic presence to me than Elizabeth Warren because it's more current. Elizabeth Warren's like the greatest hits that people keep pointing to are from like almost a decade ago. Stacey Abrams, absolutely, when she was running for governor of Georgia. And again, not with like actually, if you go into it, she didn't have like some great progressive record at all. And it's important to be really clear about that. That's absolutely not her politics. She's definitely corporate oriented, third way Southern Democrat. But there was absolutely, of course, as Anna talked about earlier, Republican voter disenfranchisement and racism. And there was a great chutzpah in her just saying like, sure, like I'm not the governor, but I don't fully accept these results, obviously, because there was voter disenfranchisement. Cool, nice, absolutely. And now, for the last couple of years, Stacey Abrams, like, this is another one where it's like endorsing corporate-oriented candidates, appearing with Mike Bloomberg, giving a totally anemic response to Donald Trump's State of the Union, and then, like, in the process, actually creating a very nice entertainment career for herself and writing career, which is great. More power to her, but really showing like this is not somebody with any sort of progressive commitments at all. And so there's just some interesting parallel tracks here in terms of like, you know, frankly, in this case, just like positive media formation that isn't earned. And endorsing Hickenlooper, I mean,
terrible.
That couldn't be more stark. I mean, I guess the most flagrant would be endorsing Elliot Agel, or Amy McGrath, which I believe Abrams might have tiptoed towards. But in the third in that sort of trifecta of bad calls would be John Hickenlooper over Romanoff, and there is Warren and Abrams coming through.
Cory Gardner is more likely to be beat by Romanoff. We need to fight like hell, and the primaries in Colorado are going to take place this week. So if you have time this weekend, please do some phone banking for Romanoff. He's an excellent candidate, fully on board with the Green New Deal, and as Michael mentioned, has really put some serious climate change legislation on the table in Colorado. Elizabeth Warren, I feel like at this point, isn't even pretending to be this progressive warrior that she posed as during the primaries. You know, when she endorsed Hickenlooper over Romanoff, I shared that information with people who are still pretty supportive of Warren, sympathetic to her positions, and don't buy the argument that, Michael, you've been making from the beginning about how she's not genuine about these proposals. And I think people are now starting to realize, oh, okay, there is this ambition over anything else characteristic that Elizabeth Warren has. You know, at first I was willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and believe that she's genuine in wanting to accomplish progressivism in this country, but her theory of change is off. She thinks that she has to work with the establishment in order to get it done. Now I'm realizing that no, that's really not even her theory of change. I mean, what she's hyper focused on is her theory of gaining more power and furthering her political career. Endorsing Hickenlooper over Romanoff is one of the worst things that she's done. And if she was genuine in wanting to push forward with real universal health care, she knows that having Hickenlooper as opposed to Romanoff in Congress is going to make that unbelievably harder. So why would you endorse someone who's like the darling of the private healthcare industry? It just makes no sense. So
yeah, I mean, totally. And I think like she's actually an interesting example though of like we have this like cancel or stan culture, which is just terrible. And we've been focusing because, you know, the gears of like cruelty and viciousness have been like in full gear. And so like the witch hunts on people and everything that have been going on for years and rejecting that. But like there is actually a flip that shows up, which is of like this person can just do no wrong and not take them in their totality. So, you know, and even me, like, I think like, look, there are other people who were way more critical of her out of the gate than I was. I just was trying to like, and they were right. And I was just trying to like follow just like what I saw in front of me. And of course, like the big stumbling block was just always like, why is she running? Like Bernie's the candidate for this stuff, right? Like, but at any rate, I think like that's sort of like the balance. And so I don't want to like actually get into the other, like, again, like it's not like screw Elizabeth Warren forever or whatever, but it's just like, can you just be like slightly real about her? And
right.
I don't, and I just don't understand, you know, she took at this time, I mean, her big post, like, and again, she just didn't run, like she was a 5th place finisher. Her base was the media, and she goes out and the first thing she does is again smear Bernie Sanders and his supporters, like on Rachel Maddow. Nothing to do with policy, nothing to do with commitments, just pure aggrieved narcissism. And like, so I don't know if at this point, Hickenlooper shouldn't do the trick. It should just be that, like, you know, what she's really trying to do is being nice to John, and because she knows that he's going to win because she's so smart. And then when he does win, then then it becomes single payer. Then Hickenlooper, that was always the Warren thing. It's just like, then John Hickenlooper will be elected. Then his son will read Gramsci. And then his son will convince him to change a policy portfolio just in time for 2025, when I've been put in charge of a new office for COVID recovery. And then the plans start to kick in. That's what Bernie people don't understand. So that's what I also love too. It's just like, oh yeah, you fucking idiots. Like just going out and having policies and fighting for it and trying to rally popular support. Fuck all that. The way you really do it is you have this Rube Goldberg contraption. Just like nonsense that nobody understands except for nerds in the media. And then somehow like the pinball ricochets off, and Elizabeth was like, everybody gets citizenship in Singapore. And then
okay. So I don't know if this is even okay to mention, but like your Elizabeth Warren impression reminds me of a character on Family Guy. Do you watch Family Guy at all?
No.
There's a neighbor for the family in Family Guy, and he has the exact same tone in his voice. So every time you like do her impersonation, I think of him, and it's just like an extra layer of like funny and creepy at the same time. It's awesome.
I have to see that.